folks? Like blood, violence, freaks of nature? Well, then come on down to Captain Spaulding's Museum of Monsters and Madmen.
Which do you prefer when it comes to crazy, maniacal, downright dirty and savage families looking to chop up some grade A human flesh? I guess it all comes down to personal preference. But isn't preference drawing a fine line between comparing and downgrading the other? Well, you're in luck, because another horror movie ripoff is in tow, and this time it brings the flesh by the pound. Or pounds? I think it's the latter. Today we're going to be discussing and comparing 2003's House of a Thousand Corpses by Rob Zombie and Tobe Hooper's 1986 follow-up in the Leatherface mythos, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Both are delightful, both are cult classics, and both stack up well against each other. But who takes the cake? And is one a blatant ripoff? Let's dive in.
Giddy up!
Family is where the heart is, or more specifically, the innocent beating heart about to be ripped out from them by either the Firefly clan or the Sawyer clan. Both Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 and House of a Thousand Corpses possess two different, albeit the same, style of families. They're both hell-bent on bloodlust, decorating their establishments with all types of bloody mutilations and unseen horrors that we don't dare try to piece together. It's clearly an amusement park of horror. You have the Firefly clan, made up of Otis, Baby, Tiny, Mother, Grandpa, Rufus, Earl, Dr. Satan, and of course, Captain Spaulding, who is revealed to be the last centerpiece at the end of House's finale. What's truly amazing is Bill Moseley, playing both Chop Top and Otis Firefly in both of these films, just hamming it up in both. You can't help but wonder if Rob Zombie used Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2's family dynamic as an influence, except injected with steroids. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 has Leatherface, Chop Top, Grandpa, and Drayton Sawyer running the show. It's a family affair.
The Saw is family!
And they all possess different mentalities of sadism, masochism, and straight murderous intentions. Both also have some very weird grandfathers, although House's has a flair for the theatrical. But it's all about preference. They're different, yet similar, and you can't help but root for both, even if the Fireflies are just a modern representation of the Sawyer clan. They do, however, sure know how to make a fish and human work very well together.
Fish boy!
Oh my god! This can't be real, this can't be real, this can't be real!
Oh, it's real.
When it comes to horror films, you usually need dumb decisions to get the ball rolling. But both TCM2 and House have a similar way in narrative that sets up their exposition. When young adult males decide to venture out to a football game, they take the desolate Texas roads by night, usually a bad idea. This in turn causes them to become bait for good old Leatherface, who makes one of them miss half a head, and the other one become a mangled mess in the forthcoming car wreck. Bad decisions usually don't end well, which brings us to House's group of feeble-minded minions, Jerry, Denise, Mary, and Bill, looking to explore off-site establishments, taking a liking to the fables and myths of Dr. Satan's grave, when Captain Spaulding gives them a map to get there. On the way to their destination, they pick up a hitchhiker named Baby, played by Zombie's real-life wife, Sherry Moon Zombie. The car breaks down with a well-placed gunshot. Baby Firefly guides Bill on foot to her house so that they can seek help and get back on the road. Clearly, they won't be making it to their girlfriend's father's house for Halloween. You gotta love when crazed families plan and map out tactics for their next victims. Great bonding time, that's for sure. Both House and TCM2 have the fuzz, as they call it, on both families' tales. In House of a Thousand Corpses, when one of the victims, Denise Willis, goes missing, her father, Don, calls the deputies to investigate, which leads Deputy George Whittle, played by Tom Tolles, and Deputy Steve, played by Walton Goggins, to the Firefly house. It doesn't really end up well for the both of them, as they become pigs to the slaughter. As for Lefty, in TCM2, played by the legendary Dennis Hopper, he's the uncle to Franklin and Sally from the first film, and he's out for some good old-fashioned revenge. Although he does bend the honor and laws of the badge he represents by going after the Sawyer clan on his own, with a little help from Stretch. In the movie's climax, Lieutenant Lefty has a climactic chainsaw fight against Leatherface, and takes on the Sawyer clan by himself, while also trying to save Stretch in the process. Hopper definitely has charisma and bravado in this role. It's just a shame we weren't comparing Lefty to House's sequel, and Whittle's ass-kicking, God-fearing righteous brother, Sheriff John Quincy Whittle, played by William Forsythe.
You and me, we're gonna have a little powwow about a certain Captain Spaulding and his merry band of assholes.
In TCM2, Stretch's friend, L.G. Peters, unfortunately becomes hammer fodder and has his face taken off by Leatherface. L.G.'s face is forcefully put on Stretch's face as she screams in terror within the underground lair beneath the amusement park, inhabited by the Sawyer clan. A truly horrifying sight to see. I believe Zombie wanted to use this infamous death by having his malevolent firefly Otis do the exact same thing to Denise Willis's father, Don, who is gunned down by Otis when he goes out to investigate with Whittle and Steve. Don's face and body are flayed by Otis, and is worn by Otis during the famous Run Rabbit Run ceremony and sacrifice. Otis ends it by putting Don's face on the daughters, which is some truly horrific stuff. The survivors in House at this time, which are Jerry and Denise, are thrown into a coffin and levered down into a literal pit of hell, filled with ghouls, zombies, and of course, Dr. Satan himself.
Dr. Satan! Ah, Dr. Satan!
Bones are draped all along the underground walls, just like that in TCM2. You gotta appreciate the grisly artistry displayed by both the Fireflies and the Sawyers within their lovely hangout spots. You can't help but deny that Rob Zombie used both TCM 1 and 2 as an influence for his House trilogy. There are a lot of distinct parallels between them, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Family dynamics are usually hard to juggle, but in House and Texas Chainsaw 2, they're balanced perfectly well, giving us a taste of each character displayed throughout their runtimes. Tasteful, but totally disgusting is what I'll say. Each movie has cemented itself as a cult classic, and both are in my collection as it stands, with repeat viewings for both.
Look, if you don't quit doing the asshole shuffle and pick one of these goddamn options, I'm gonna come over there and put my boot up your ass.
Sometimes taking influence and ripping off components in films work, but they need to draw a fine line without becoming watered down and boring. Usually they're elevated, and are an homage to those that came before it. Thankfully, Zombie didn't overstay his welcome with Texas Chainsaw 2 influences, and made House of a Thousand Corpses his very own. It truly shines, and warrants repeat viewings, especially every Halloween, and I consider it a love letter to Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
Good night!